Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for the next legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the information, there's a timestamp in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I wanted to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered much more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of the character with their weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display the first actionable frame. Lastly, On Miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and On Hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on the next voted in legend, Jaeyun. Jaeyun is a mercenary based on Korean origins. He has a dragon turtle companion and lost his eye to a cat. I'll leave it at that. He's a notorious gambler and has lost just as much as he's gained in the practice. His addition to the game was met with mixed response thanks to his inclusion of his new weapon. Jaeyun's weapons are Sword and Great Sword. He was the first legend to have the Great Sword weapon and has had mixed reception since his induction into the game.
It's just a bigger sword, lol!
Jaeyun honestly has a solid stat distribution. With solid strength and speed coupled with his SIGs and light attack, high knockout potential, he has been pretty good in the metagame recently. He's a really cool legend, frankly, whose addition to the roster I really enjoyed. So, do his SIGs add to or detract from his kit? Let's find out. Let's start with his sword. Sword's side SIG has 16 frames of startup, active frames from 17 to 26 with an FAF of 50. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, it converts into a second hit with active frames from 48 to 53 with a new FAF of 69. During this SIG, Jaeyun kicks dust up for the initial hit of the move, and should it connect with the opponent, he pivots and stabs his sword backwards into them. I find it really funny that he kicks up dust at them, and that definitely seems like a tactic that a gambling mercenary would use. It has relatively low startup time and an okay FAF on miss. It has some pretty decent sized hitboxes in front of him as well, and I think that offers him some very beneficial coverage and utility. Sword Insing has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 41 with an FAF of 62. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Jaeyun jumps upward, surrounded by gusts of wind and leaves. He surrounds himself with hitboxes, and this SIG has the highest amount of active frames on his entire kit. Due to the high active frames, it has a really high FAF, but Jaeyun jumps so high in the air during this SIG that even after the end lag, he's still really high up, allowing him some decent mobility off of this SIG. The SIG is excellent at catching opponents trying to jump over or recover high, and can knock out pretty early in a similar fashion to Bodvar's in-SIG on Sword. Definitely a solid SIG. Sword down SIG has 28 frames of startup, active frames from 29 to 38 with an FAF of 54. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. His down SIG is a passive SIG. Jaeyun shifts backward slightly before charging forward with a slash. This explains the high startup time on his SIG and reasonable FAF. One thing though is the hitboxes on this SIG are rather small. Well, not small necessarily in size, but in terms of range. They don't cover much distance in front of him, and so in terms of range, this SIG is kinda subpar. Next up is his Greatsword. Greatsword's side SIG has 29 frames of startup, active frames from 30 to 40 with an FAF of 64. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, it converts into a second hit with active frames from 66 to 72 and an FAF of 90. Jaeyun jumps forward, slamming his Greatsword into the ground, shattering the ground and sending boulders flying into the air. If the initial hit connects, Jaeyun slices the stones he knocked up in half while slashing his opponent as well. This SIG looks really cool and has a lot of style. It has pretty high amounts of startup, which again makes sense given the nature of his weapons, but it can knock out rather early, so it's pretty useful as a punish option. Greatsword N-SIG has 16 frames of startup, active frames from 17 to 26 with an FAF of 49. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Jaeyun drags his sword along the ground before slinging it into the air along with some rocks. This SIG has low startup, decent amount of active frames, and decent end lag. It covers directly in front of Jaeyun as well as above him, so it's useful for catching jumping opponents as well as grounded ones, offering him dual coverage in one move with low startup, so I think that this SIG is pretty good. Greatsword down SIG has 31 frames of startup, active frames from 32 to 44 with an FAF of 60. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Jaeyun jumps forward, slinging his sword below him and creating several large hitboxes. The startup on this move is pretty high at over half a second, but it's good for punishing opponents charging at you and has an okay mobility to it. The FAF on it is high, but the N-lag on it isn't really that bad at only 16 frames. This isn't the best SIG in his kit for sure, but it certainly does have some utility. So overall, his SIGs are mixed in terms of their frame data. His sword has decent frame data in terms of startup and active frames, coupled with the fact that he has a passive SIG with down SIG on sword. His frame data on greatsword, though, is much slower, but given the slow nature of this weapon and its incredible knockout potential, I think that this makes a lot of sense. His SIGs have some decent coverage. With between both weapons, he's able to cover space in front of him as well as directly above him, with neutral SIGs on both his weapons. I really like the animations that they decided to use for Jaeyun's SIGs, and it reminds me a lot of the wind mechanics from Ghost of Tsushima. I know that upon his release, a lot of people had problems with Jaeyun due to his neutral attacks and finisher KOs, but since the slight nerfs to his kit, I think that he's been toned down a little bit. I think that his SIGs are decent, but not amazing. Their massive hitbox sizes on greatsword definitely are beneficial for catching opponents, and his sword SIGs are relatively quick with a solid amount of active frames. He's pretty fun to play, honestly, and I've definitely invested some time into him, playing him after he was released, and I think you should too. Today's code to put down in the comments is Getsuga Tensho, along with your Twitter handle, and if you get that reference, I appreciate it. Tune in Monday for coverage on the highest voted legend from this week. Check the description for the poll to vote for next week's 5 legends. This is the final video of this week, so I'll distribute the prizes to the winners this evening, and the poll will be closed later tonight, so be sure to get your votes in. I'll be continuing this once a day Monday through Friday over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered. So thanks for joining me on this ride. Please remember to subscribe so you can keep up with your favorite legend, and I'll see you back in the next one. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.